Alright, now this is a special lesson devoted to Photoshop Concepts A. There's one part of Concepts A that's a little bit different than the rest of the things we've been doing, and that is using adjustment layers. So far, when we've wanted to change the color of something, we've come out here, we've gone in and adjusted it through some means, and this one has a color mode issue, so let me fix that real quick. You're going to notice that you'll get really good at that. So if you're going to adjust, we've been going to image and adjustments, and it adjusts what Mrs. Skinner's going to call destructively. So, once I adjust this, and we've been using black and white, but let's say I do levels. Levels is one I use a lot. Levels, you can pull the black to darken the dark areas, or the white to lighten the light areas. See, eventually they're so light you can't see them. But when we do those adjustments and we click OK, it's just done. And so, if I save this the next day, I can't fix that. If I want it back to the way it was before, whereas right now I could just step backward and put it back to normal, I wouldn't be able to do that the next day because I can't undo. Okay? So there is a better way to do adjustments. And again, even if I went to image and adjustments and I went to this and made this black and white, it would just do it to this layer. But again, it's going to be permanent, like it's done. And then the next day if I came back in and I wanted this back in its natural color, I couldn't do that. So Photoshop has what are called adjustment layers. Now they make their own layers, which sounds a little complicated, but it's actually super amazing. So let me take my clapping Tanya here. I clicked on this layer. Instead of using the image menu and adjustments, there's a layer pull down menu and then new adjustment layer. And the reason this is under the layer menu is because it creates a whole separate layer. Now there are some dangerous effects of that, and I'll show you here in just a minute. So if I go into this one, let's say I'm going to tint it, so I'll go into my black and white. This is going to pop up, and I'm going to say tint blue because that's what I'm going to use this layer to do. Now you're going to want to get into the habit of check marking this box. Now I'm not going to check mark it so you can see what it does, but you're going to want to get into the habit of check marking the box to do what we call clipping it, like taking a paper clip and clipping it to this picture. Okay, just keep that in the back of your mind. I'm going to click OK, and now you can notice some things are happening. Now I have instead of a box that pops up to change my colors, it's over here now in its own panel. And so if I was going to tint it, I would click tint, and then I would try to eventually find out which color I wanted, if I'm tinting blue. Now, I'm sure you're already like, whoa, Miss Skinner, this thing is freaking out. You're right. So here's my adjustment layer. Wherever this adjustment layer is and whatever it's in front of, so if I move it up, it's going to affect everything that's below it. So if I put it at the very top, everything goes blue. If I put it down here above the hands up, everything from there on is blue. So these two are not affected. See, this one and this one, the words and the shape are not affected, but everything from there down is. Well, if you recall, I really only wanted that to apply to Clapping Tanya, but if I put it above Clapping Tanya, it also does it to the rest of these. So that's what clipping is about. So you're going to clip, you put it above the layer that you want to clip it to, and then you just simply right-click it and you create the clipping mask. Now this is going to look different, so look carefully here as to what happens. Aha! So there's an arrow clipping it. Just pretend that's a paper clip, and that arrow is clipping it to the Clapping Tanya. It's clipping to the clapping. Okay, and then this is still editable at any time. I can double-click this, and it brings this back up. So if I decide that I want to tint it, yellow, I can switch it, and it's all run from here. Okay, so this is clipping. Now I can also unclip it. Now you have to point out here to the blue space. But you can release the clip, like pull off the paper clip, and now it's back out there where it messes with everything, or again, right-click it and create that clipping mask. You can also delete it. So the next day I come in and I'm like, man, I just look terrible here. I don't like this. I just want to get rid of it. All right, well, then delete it. You can just completely delete that layer. Now it's gone completely. Because it's on a separate layer, see, we can treat it just like we would any other layer. We can delete it with a trash can. We can right-click and delete it. We can move it around. So these adjustment layers are super, super, super helpful. Now, let me go ahead and put in another adjustment layer. So again, you want to click on the layer, and then like I said before, you can actually clip it along the way. So when I go to layer, a new adjustment layer, let's say I just want to brighten it. So brightness and contrast is one of the layers. Now this time I'm going to say brighten, and I'm going to clip it to automatically make it connect to my Woot layer. So now anything I do in this adjustments panel will only affect that one particular picture. Okay, and then if I want to see the before and after, I can just click the button to turn it on or off. If I change my mind, I can delete it. It's not a big deal. So my preference would be that whenever you can make changes non-destructively, that's kind of the best way to do it. Okay. All right, now let me go ahead and show you one more thing here with regards to this this feature, and that is what some of these other adjustment layers do. So let me come up to the clapping Kanye again, and layer, new adjustment layer. So brightness and contrast is a pretty common one. Levels is another really common one, and I mentioned. Hue and saturation is as well. You can do your color changes there. Those are probably the ones I use the most. Some people really like curves, which is very unpredictable if you don't know what you're doing. I'm actually going to open an image because I think you'll understand it a little better if it's an actual picture. So I'll take this picture from ELF here. And if I go to layer, new adjustment layer, and curves, and I'll go ahead and clip it even though it's the only layer. So, apparently that was an animation. There's a whole bunch of layers. But here it is down here at the bottom. What this one does on the adjustment panel is it gives me this weird little chart looking thing, or graph looking thing, and I can drag. So you see the picture, how it's going? You could drag this and it makes things look a little bit different. You can even add additional points and it does different things. Again, you kind of have to know what you're doing if you're using curves, but sometimes you can just make it look cool that way. Sometimes with pictures I'll try the curves. If curves doesn't work, then sometimes I might take a levels adjustment and adjust the levels so that the darker parts are dark. Again, that's the top triangle. Darker parts are dark. This gray are your middle colors, so you'll lighten up the middle, and then this would lighten up the white areas. And you can see there's before and there's after, so it's a bit brighter and more vivid. So that's several different adjustment layers, and again, when you're using those, you will want to clip them to what you want to use, and then if you need to release them, just right-click, release the clipping mask, or if you decide you don't want it, right-click and delete that layer completely, and it just goes back to normal. So there you go, folks. That is using adjustment layers.